there's three major areas that we can borrow in the Australian market. So we can borrow in our own name, which is the most common thing. The most common thing is people will just buy in their own name. They'll have this thing in their mind that they can get some tax breaks. I'm paying the government too much money.
Everyone's got to stop that. This tax break, I invest just to save tax, 3 ways to save tax or whatever it may be. That's the biggest no-no.
And that's the clickbait, right?
That's it.
When you peel behind how to pay off your owner-occupied mortgage with the tax man, like that's all just in property investing, probably done to bait you in. And tax is an outcome, not a strategy.
Yep. And that's what us sophisticated investors know that are in the game. But these people advertise to people that aren't in property investment, and they're just looking at just getting anyone who wants to save a little bit on tax.
That's right.
But what everyone needs to do is have a look at what's your desired end goal. Is it an early retirement? Is it the 150K passive income? And focus on achieving that goal. Tax is it's something that's there. And if you're making money, you're paying a bit of it. But at the end, that shouldn't be our reason for investing.
That's right. And that's where I see a lot of people get capped out because they don't want to pay an accountant's fee. They don't want to set up a structure that could cost a few grand a year. They are used to paying their $300, $400, $500 tax bill, but now we're going to do some more advanced strategies around where we can hold debt, which helps us borrow more.
Yeah.
And we got people that they always focus on their personal life, personal name to own debt. And when they focus just on that area, they can get stuck.
Yep.
Then most people will start to go down the line of the self-managed super fund because it's quite known that it's got its own borrowing capacity. It's isolated from your own personal life, but has some quite ninja ways to use future income and a few other things to be able to get borrowing capacity there. So then it's the personal life. They've capped that out. Then they go to the super, and then typically they may come back to their own personal life after 6 to 12 months of distraction with the super fund, hoping that something's changed here.
Yeah.
And then they still go to the barbecue. They go, cool, I've done the super, I've done my own name, I'm still stuck. And these guys have just bought like 10 properties. What's going on? I've got the same income. So then that's where the third area of investing comes in, where you've got your own name, self-managed super funds, and then entities. Now, I put entities there because it could be because there's a bit of extra advice around that stuff, right? So super's pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of companies and a trust deed, and it's quite regulated, and it's fairly not necessarily always off the shelf, but it's nearly off the shelf with accounting and planners and stuff. With the trusts, that's where we get a little option. So there's things that fancy names like discretionary trust, unit trusts, hybrid trusts, family trusts, company as a trustee, individual as a trustee. So that actually requires some accounting assistance and tax and what happens in different states. So I've just put that in a bucket of entities.
And that's what rich people go to, right? So that's what rich people go straight to. But a lot of investors are making the mistake where they max out their personal name, then they'll go SMSF because they hear everyone's doing SMSF and it's got its own serviceability way in which it services. So they go the SMSF and then they're like, oh, I'm tapped out. What do I do now? Yeah. Oh, you're telling me you can get serviceability if I get a trust. That's what I hear commonly. And then
very common.
But they've already maxed out their personal. And then it's about undoing some of the purchases or transferring it over and so on just to get that serviceability back. Whereas what you should be doing is when you're starting a portfolio, know where we're going, know our end goal, and let's work on the entity structure straight away.
Absolutely. So when you borrow and you look at the complicated calculation that entities usually sparks, because it's easy to say your own name and super is so separate, but entities needs, especially if you're buying residential property, it needs personal borrowing capacity to get there.
Yeah.
So if you've ever heard someone go, oh, well, we won't invest in trusts and companies until we've run out of borrowing capacity. Well, that's the biggest furphy out there. You can't invest if you don't have borrowing capacity. You can't invest if you don't have a good income. There are some outliers about how we can deal with things with commercial and other types of products, but if you've got a good income and you've got too much in your own name, because your own name, the calculation in trusts always comes to your own name, your own personal borrowing capacity, living expenses, children, debt, private school fees, all the stuff that comes in there, plus the property, debt, value and rent of the property that goes into the entity. That has to pass the calculator. So you might have built up your own name with lots of property and stuff like that. But you've really got to then engage buyer's agent like yourself to understand what has my property portfolio done? Is there going to be more growth in some of these properties? Which properties could I let go of to be able to repay debt in our own name, to then look at structuring the debt into trusts and entities and all that sort of stuff. So you highly respect people that have built a property portfolio up in their own name. I've had people come to me, they've got 9 properties in their own name and they're stuck. But with a bit of elbow grease, a bit of work, a bit of understanding what's going on with those properties can make the big difference of potentially even selling down. Oh, that's a dirty word. We shouldn't sell our properties, right?
No, you shouldn't. But we want to keep acquiring, right? That's the goal. But at the end of the day, sometimes to clean it up, it's necessary. Also, there will be properties that aren't performing or that are in areas that have considerable growth. You can cash in on that, clean things up, and take that one step back to go 2 steps forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the other one that we've had a lot more conversation around is, can you move your properties from one place to another? And the answer is yes, but more commonly we find a bit of extra information around the property, the location, the future outlook, whatever the metrics are around it, whether it's days on market, whether it's plateauing, all those nice funky words that people use around assessing property. Most commonly we find people will sell out of their own name to then rebuy in trusts.
Yep.
There is a few outliers around whether the property is a star property, a family heirloom, or whatever it is that needs to be moved from their own name into a trust. It can be done, but there is a bit of cost associated. Yep. And then there's a really funky topic around how you can move properties from trusts to other things and all that stuff, which is where I geek out a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Well,